Welcome to the Silverstone Technology Cluster's Ask the Expert podcast. I'm your host, Jeannie. The mission of the STC is to support advanced engineering, electronics, and software businesses, and we're always keen to share industry knowledge and insights. In each podcast episode, we sit down with seasoned professionals and industry leaders to uncover valuable knowledge, share real-world experiences, and explore smart strategies for navigating the challenges of modern business in advanced engineering. This episode is brought to you by TC Group, a leading firm of accountants and business advisors with offices in Northampton and Milton Keynes. Hi, and today I'm joined by Benn Klewpatinond from Inond. Thank you for joining me today, Ben.
Thanks for having me, Jeannie.
So can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey, and how you got to where you are at Inond?
So I'm Benn Klewpatinond. I'm the founder and I'd say innovation partner at Inond, and we're an innovation and product realization company who basically helping people either define problems, work out ideas and solutions, getting them all the way through to helping them set up their manufacturing, the supply chain, and everything in between.
Okay, so when we're talking about innovation and how organisations innovate, often it's product-led and it's about the end product. What can you tell me about the stakeholder ecosystem around that really influences the innovation journey?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we do. It's not just about the product. And if it's just focused about the product, then you could have the most amazing thing in the world. But if you haven't considered everything else along that journey or the other people involved in that journey, then it might not be the success you hope it to be. And we've obviously seen and experienced that with some projects we've been in the past or things we've seen out in the market. But it's all about the wider ecosystem of stakeholders. So what's happening around the world, so external factors that could be affecting your product, your business, and everything else around that. But also the system that helps build your product and actually gets it to market, but also what is affecting it when it gets to market. So if you haven't considered all of those things when you're actually designing the product, when it does launch and go to market, it might not be as impactful as potentially what it would be. Also, because it hasn't, say, empathized with what else is happening with external factors, then it might not be adopted as well.
Okay, when you say it like that, it sounds so obvious, right? You've explained it in a way that makes it sound like it's almost something that should be thought about.
Yep.
But I guess a lot of people get excited about an idea, they get excited about a product, and they jump the steps.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that, and I've been there, I'm guilty. You get excited about something, you want to then do the next thing, you want to see it, and you want to make something, you want to build it, you want to test it and prove it. But it's actually, from a commercialization perspective, is actually step back and look at the whole journey, or whole framework, if you like, that's required to bring a product to market. And if you go too fast too soon, without considering those kind of different elements, external factors, like I mentioned earlier, but also the wider ecosystem, is you can then build up a lot of legacy with your product development or your innovation or solution, whatever you're doing, and have to then redo things and come back because not everything was considered. So a lot of things that we do, we actually front load a lot of the feasibility and the viability of the idea early on to make sure we're considering as much as possible throughout, or remove assumptions, I guess is another thing, of being able to kind of map out what could happen.
Okay.
Which would then help direct and constrain sometimes what the design or the solution could be as you move it forward.
Okay, that's really interesting. And you talk about the stakeholder value chain at Inond. It's something that you talk about. What does that actually mean?
So it's all about who's involved, who actually gets value from your product, not just the end user. And like you mentioned earlier about the product, most of the time we can be confined in designing something that's just for a certain person, that end user, without fully considering all the other people it's going to impact along the way or when it's in the market as well. So when I'm talking about the stakeholder value chain, we're talking about the maybe even the suppliers, the manufacturers, the components suppliers, legislation, other people that will be involved in however little capacity to make that product a success. And one of the things that we do with this, like you said, the stakeholder value chain, is understanding what value it is in for them.
Okay.
What's in it for them? You know, why should they be bothered about this thing? And if they're more interested in it, like us as just normal people, if we're interested in something, we're going to give it a bit more time. we're going to care about it a bit more. So actually, how do we get others along that whole journey to care more? Because they're going to give more as well. And actually, hopefully by the end of when the product goes to market and launches, you're going to get a better product.
Okay, and when we're talking about the sort of stakeholder ecosystem, like you talked about earlier, what are the things that are getting misunderstood and overlooked early on, as an example, that are causing sort of failure for innovations and causing you to have to go back and, like you said, start again and redo things that you've already done and effectively just waste a load of time and money?
I think a lot of the time it's around assumptions or just doing it the way we've always done it.
Well, that's not innovating, is it?
That's not innovating, but sometimes the thing that you're creating might seem innovative.
Okay.
But the process in doing it might not be. And so actually you're then building up legacy and everything else behind that you've then got these assumptions. You know, we talk about it a lot around unconscious biases or assumed assumptions is another way of thinking about it. And we're thinking that Jeannie might want this, but I haven't actually properly considered it. I'm sure they want that. I'm sure that person wants that. And unless we actually put ourselves in those people's shoes or look at the world through their eyes, then we're not really going to see it in their perspective or even understand their perception of the world as well. And in doing that, along that whole, say, product development or innovation journey, is really going to unlock some more opportunities.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when we're looking at the outcome that people are trying to get to, what can they do to change the focus of that and sort of focus on the outcome and change the way they design? Mm-hmm. Is that a factor that you help with?
Yeah. So the outcome is always important, and that's why we help with clients, not just their own work as well, but when we're doing some client work as well as some of our own product development, is understanding that outcome and that design intent right from the beginning.
Yep.
And making sure that we keep on top of that all the way through to the end as the product launches. And so the product doesn't lose that design intent, what the idea was originally for. And you've lost it by the time it goes through different stages along the journey sometimes. So we're here to kind of help control that and manage that and make sure that it gets to there. So from an outcome perspective, it's really understanding what, like I mentioned earlier, what's in it for the different stakeholders along that journey. So particularly, say, for the end user, is what is the job or what is the outcome they want this product to do? You know, we've seen it a lot with, I don't know if you've seen the drill analogy where you buy a drill, but the only reason you've bought a drill is to drill a hole. So actually you want a hole.
Not a drill. Yep.
In order
the
to
drill's
get
a
the
means
hole,
to an end.
Exactly. The outcome is a hole, but I need to buy a drill to make the hole. We take it one step further as well, is that we then also put in some of that emotive element as well with the person.
Why do you want a hole?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why did you want a hole in the first place? And actually, if you say, okay, I wanted a hole because I wanted to put this screw into the wall because I wanted to hang a picture. I wanted to put a picture up of, say, my family or someone who's no longer with you or whatever. Okay, great. You start to really delve into why they wanted that thing in the first place. And the outcome that they actually want is the feeling that they get
when they see the picture
and seeing the putting the picture up and seeing the picture. So that's the ultimate outcome. So then if you kind of flip that and saying from a product development or innovation perspective and say, okay, we're going to develop a new drill. Then we're going to have drill bits, and then we'll do that. If you flip it round and say, okay, I'm in my hallway and I want to feel lovely, feel great when I'm walking through this. How am I going to get there? Okay, if I put a picture up of my family, it's going to bring back these memories, other things that's going to make me feel great. How do I do that? And now I need to put a picture up. I need to drill a hole. I need to do this. Oh, I need a drill.
Okay.
And actually, if you flip that whole narrative behind that, you then really unpack what the outcome that the people actually really want.
Yeah.
And get a bit more in depth, I guess, is the other way of thinking about it.
I think you've answered my next question, because I was going to ask you about the, assumption-led innovation and outcome-led innovation. Yeah. And, you've kind of explained the differences there a little bit. How do you help your clients understand the difference and identify moving from one to the other? Because presumably a lot of innovations are assumption led because we go, oh, we need this. We need to drill a hole.
Mm-hmm.
We need to drill. Whereas you're flipping it around and going, okay, let's understand why we need that. Mm. And also it leads to, product development in different ways because maybe there's an alternative to drilling a hole, maybe. And we see this all the time. I've just moved into a rental and I've been looking at alternatives for putting pictures on the wall rather than, putting holes in it and wall plugs. And there's loads of different things on the market which have obviously been developed from that sort of outcome-led innovation.
Yep.
So, is it a difficult journey to go on with people sometimes?
It can be because you really need to ask the right questions and keep asking questions. Why, the 5 whys and things like that. But also one technique that we do as well, there is a thing called outcome-driven innovation. And one of those things is looking at the jobs to be done. Okay. And one of those things that we do as well is, okay, most of the time you're looking at what's that desired outcome? What does success mean to Jeannie? What does that mean to you versus me versus everybody else? We've then identified that need. We can then design something, or come up with ideas for how we can solve that need, and develop and test, etc. Also comes into like design thinking. But what we do with a lot of the jobs to be done is breaking down the processes that you kind of carry out into smaller micro interactions and stages, so that you can then potentially uncover things that you would never have thought about and things that you naturally do without thinking about it. Those unconscious actions as well that you might carry out because you've just done it for however long. Yeah. But actually, if you start to then map those out, there might be opportunities within those processes that uncover areas that are unmet, or potentially you could innovate there because that could make something quicker or easier and reduce friction, et cetera, in getting to the outcome.
Yeah. So now I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you give me an example of something that you've done at Ion that sort of changed the journey, changed the direction of a product or the development of a product? Do you have any sort of real life examples that you can put into words for us?
Yes. So with that longer whole customer or stakeholder value chain, as well as the jobs to be done, with Float Rower that I invented.
Oh, yes.
And we launched into David Lloyd clubs quite a few years ago now. Part of that process when we launched as a trial and then it became continuous because
continuous improvement along the way.
No. The trial became continuous because of those considerations that we put into the different customers. So the example would be our customer was David Lloyd. Okay. David Lloyd's customer was each other gym, of their gyms. Each gym's customer would have been the PTs and the health and fitness professionals on the gym floor. Yep. Their customer is the end user, the gym member who's using the machine. And their outcome is whatever. They want to get fitter, they want to get stronger, they just want to have fun, whatever. Every single person or every single customer in that chain has their own outcomes or metrics that they want from engaging with this product. So the David Lloyd example would be they want to be seen as innovative, bringing brand new product to the market, also in a space that has not been that innovative in the past. And then each gym as well has their own count. They want more members in, they want more footfall, they want more memberships. Obviously, David Lloyd HQ would want that too. Then you've got the gym professionals and PTs. They want to deliver sessions. We designed gym floor classes for the PTs and the gym professionals or the health and fitness professionals to deliver.
So it's not just a product, it's a package.
Exactly. So you're considering that also wider impact of, we could have just designed it and launched it and stuck it in the corner. That's exactly where it would have been. And no one would have interacted with it because they wouldn't have cared. Whereas because we considered all of those different customers along the way, there was something in it for them. Yes. And so it was motivated. More easy for them to sell it as well for us. And so when the gym floor staff were then carrying out these gym floor classes that we also helped them to deliver, in the fact that we designed some of them and gave them templates for them to go and this is how you could design a class. We got it on their app so members could book on the classes. What they then got were their own PT sessions off the back of it. Okay. So it was almost a way for them to promote and sell themselves. And then the gym members, they're obviously getting the benefit from using the machine, engaging with it, tracking the metric, learning as well, because we had videos that we put on there, learn to row. And because of all that, prior to launch, I taught over 25 gym staff how to row.
Okay. Because it's a technique thing, isn't it? And it's one of those things, rowing particularly. I know that every gym's got rowing machines.
Yeah.
But being able to row effectively and correctly, because if you do it wrong, it's actually really bad for your body, right?
Yeah. It could be bad, but also it's if you're keeping the technique right, you're going to be able to do it longer and better and get more benefit from it. But also flip it the other way around, the fitter that you are, the longer you're going to be able to sustain the technique as well.
Yeah.
So it's balancing the two together. Excuse the pun, because the machine floated and rolled.
That's a really good example, and it shows all those different stakeholders. And I think, from an organisation's perspective who's trying to innovate and trying to be more effective on it, what's the kind of first step they can take to understanding that ecosystem around them and being more effective with their innovations?
I'm smiling because there's one thing that we've started to do is, I've talked about it a lot and we've done it without realising, but we did it with a client the other week, is role play.
Okay.
So like we said about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, how can you do that? Yes, you could try and imagine putting yourself in someone else, how do they live, and etc. But actually by role playing and being those people, it could feel uncomfortable, but could also be fun. And actually what you're doing is unpacking what they might do in their world and how they engage with the world, to feel and experience it. I think that's the main thing. We can think about how someone might do something, but actually if we actually carry out the actions, we're going to learn it quicker and better and physically experience it. So even when we've done work for inclusive design products or accessibility, we have physically, say, constrained ourselves, if you like, using tools and aids to kind of restrict hand movements or visual impairments to experience firsthand what that other person is going through, or how they perceive the world or interact with other things. And I think that's a massive, massive benefit to anybody, to get that first-hand experience.
So you really get into the psychology of end users here, aren't you, and of the stakeholders, which is what's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know you did another project on the rowing with the Para Rowing Society, didn't you? And I suppose that probably came into play a lot during that project.
Yeah, so the Para Rowing Foundation, I got to see firsthand what the rowers were going through, or the athletes, what the coaches, the boatmen, everybody else along that whole journey, not just the rower. And actually the fact of the first thing we've done in that project was not redesign the seat. We've actually redesigned the fitting mechanism to make it quicker for the seat to go on the boat in the first place. Because what that meant was that it made the coach's life easier, it made the boatman's life easier, it made the athlete's life easier because they got on the water quicker.
Yeah.
And actually they were able to then get on the water, do what they needed to do, then get off, do the next thing without having to loiter around, wait for hours whilst everything was fitted according to their measurements, because everybody's different. And it's a lot more difficult to just reach down and undo a nut and a bolt if you can't physically do that yourself. And someone else has to do it and measure for you and then make minor adjustments.
Okay.
So yeah.
No, I loved that story when you sort of told that, and when I got to learn about that, I really enjoyed that whole journey that you painted a really nice picture and you told a really nice story, and I really did enjoy that. But I suppose now talking to you, there's so much more that goes into that, and there's so much more that goes into, developing a product and innovating, and it's really good to understand.
Good.
So thank you so much for joining me today, Ben. I've really enjoyed the chat. Is there anything you want to say before we finish up?
No, if you have an idea,
come and see me.
Come and see us. Or if you've got some problems with innovation and product side of things, then
Excellent.
Come find us.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, let's hope someone does, or multiple people do. So thanks for joining me again.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye. That's it for this episode of Ask the Expert. Thanks so much for listening, and we hoped you picked up some useful insights and inspiration along the way. If you enjoyed the conversation, please give us a like, share or rating on the platform you're using. Please follow Silverstone Technology Cluster on LinkedIn and subscribe to the STC YouTube channel or podcast on Spotify or Apple so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments or a particular topic or guest you'd love to hear from, drop us an email to jeannie@silverstonetechnologycluster.com. Bye for now.